Hello everyone, good morning and welcome to today's market color session. My name is Sabi Abi and I'll be taking the first half of today's analysis, which will be covering commodity currencies, and that's AUD, USD, NZD, USD, and USD CAD. Shortly after which, my colleague is going to give us another analysis on indices as well. But before we go fully into today's business, I would like to implore us to please share the link on our statuses and trading communities that allow the sharing of links so that more people can get to participate and take advantage of what we do here at the VFT Academy. Remember, it is totally free and at no cost to you. Okay, I see a couple of us already online. Good morning, good morning. So good to have you all here. You can leave an emoji for me in the chat box. Let's get the room warm before we start. Hi, Joseph, Toby, St. Paul, Oluwafemi, Ode, Kolade, Joseph, Grace Solomon, Ebikeme, Ayuba. Hello, everyone. Are we fine? Are we good? Perfect. Hi. All right. Thank you. Okay, so now we can look at what the market has in store for us today. I'm going to be starting with AUD USD, and for the sake of those of us who are just joining for the first time and wondering what the many lines on our charts are, these are indicators, one of our trading strategies that we use here at the VFT Academy called the all-weather strategy, and that's what I'll be using for the course of this analysis. So just pay attention. I know not all of us have the indicators, that's fine. What you want to do is to take note of the price points that I call out and then, add your analysis on your trading view or any platform it is that you use in analyzing, all right? If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat box. So AUD USD, what are we saying? From the 1st of April up till now, we've been seeing consecutive buys on this particular asset class. And this is the highest we've seen since the 1st of April. This is the highest we've seen AUD USD to the upside, right? So if I'm looking at this now, I'm looking for buy opportunities to continue this move. However, I also need to be sure of where AUD USD is buying into. And if you look at where I drew this line, you see there's a resistance point right above that AUD USD could be targeting. If price is able to break above this level, then we could see continuations of this asset class. If not, this is where price is going to find resistance, eventually start to retrace or eventually reverse, right? But for now, my intent is to buy AU from here to the next resistance point on the 4 hours time frame. Also, you can see that sunshine has been printed here. Sunshine basically signifies profit taking, telling me that people who were buying AU from here all the way to this point are gradually taking profit out of the market. So if I'm looking for buy opportunities, I'm not going to be jumping in right now. I'd want to see relevant retracement to good enough levels so that I can get the opportunity to buy low, right? So I'm going to be marking out levels where I expect price to retrace into so that I can look for buy opportunities. At the same time, I wouldn't be going into that buy trying to target 1,000 pips, right? Okay, so I'm now going to the H1 time frame to mark out even more specific POIs. I have about 3 points of interest on this particular time frame. So take note of this, please. The first point of interest is 0.65360. Ideally, it's a zone, but you could draw your zone around this range. So 0.65360 to 65295, that's our POI 1. The second point of interest is right here, 0.65029. And then the third point of interest is here, 64736. So these are my 1 hour points of interest that I'm watching to see when price eventually retraces into those zones so that I can look for confirmations first before I pull the trigger. But also there may be trade opportunities in this particular session. So I'll go to M5 to draw out and see if any opportunity is currently presenting itself. Regardless, I would still want to buy low, right? Because of where my stop loss would be, I would still prefer to wait for good enough retracement. So there are 4 basic levels I always mark out here. If you've joined us a few times, you should know this by now. 4 levels, yesterday's high and low, and today before yesterday's high and low. Okay, so you can see that before yesterday's high is in confluence with our first point of interest that we drew out on the H1 time frame, sort of, right? So looking at this now, what am I saying? I'm basically saying that I want to see price do one of two things. You're going to come back in here to this support level, because those are basically support and resistance zones that I just drew out on the M5. You're going to come back here, hit support, give me confirmation on M1, and I'll look for buy opportunities, provided confirmations are met. However, if price comes all the way here and continues to break lower, then I'll be looking at the H1 POIs, looking for confirmations before I take those entries. But overall, summarized, my perspective or my interest for AU is to currently buy, especially if we see continuous sales of the DXY. The dollar has been falling due to a number of factors. There's lots of political instability. The US economy is currently not thriving at its best. So if you see continuous sell-offs of the dollar, then our buy perspective on AUD USD would even be stronger, right? So this is what I'm currently doing. Please take note of the price point on the M5 as well. Let me call that out. POI 1, 0.65817. POI 2 is 0.65372. The third one is, the third and fourth, basically, same zone, is now 0.65209. So when price comes to these zones, look for confirmations, and I'll be taking this particular buy, right? If anything changes due to fundamentals, of course, that will be communicated in the group. But as at this session, looking at the overall strategy, this is what I am looking at. I don't think we have a lot of high impact news though, but before the end of the session, we'll look at Forex Factory, just so we're not taken off guard by any news release that would change things up, okay? So NZD USD is the next asset class we're looking at. If this previous analysis is clear to you, leave a thumbs up in the chat box. If you have any questions, please type them as we proceed so that I'll just simply answer them when I am done. Okay, so NZD USD, very similar price movement with AU. Since January even, we've had NZD USD buying, except for April when we saw a huge tank, right? But it resumed that buy and has created the highest high since January 16th, right? Okay, so sunshine has been printed, profit taking has occurred. I'm expecting retracement into what zones? Retracement into what zones? I have basically 3 points of interest here, similar to what I had on AU. The first POI is 0.60553. The second point of interest is 0.60237. And then the third point of interest is right here, 0.59839. Write that down, add that to your TA for those of you. I know we have a couple of our students here who have access to these indicators. So you know what to do with this information and what we're looking at. For those who don't, simply take note of the price point once again. Okay, so 3 points of interest. Price should retrace into the zones. However, looking at what price has done here on NU, the first point of interest is looking like it has already been tested from yesterday. Zooming in so you can see the candlesticks proper. So price did this around our first POI and it has continued to buy. Regardless, sunshine has been printed, so we should still see retracement. We wouldn't want to jump into the buy when we do not catch it from the bottom. That would be buying high, which is not ideal. So still wait for retracement and give me confirmations. Going to the M5 time frame, same thing. 4 basic points of interest. What are they? Yesterday's high, yesterday's low, right? So POI 1 marked out. Point of interest 2 incoming. Right here, also in confluence with our H1 point of interest. So let me just expand this a bit so you can see clearly. Remember I told you H1 POIs are more of a zone than a specific price point. So POI 1, POI 2, day before yesterday, high and low. So day before yesterday's high is in confluence with our trend indicator. So we should see NZD USD retrace into this or this. If it holds, we know what to do. We'll be buying. If not, we'll wait till everything realigns to fit what we're looking at. Okay. Okay. Looking at USD CAD finally, before we proceed into the next half. USD CAD has been to the downside for a while. Do you see how precise our last analysis was? We looked at, so we're looking at sell-offs of this particular asset class. and it did just that, respected our POIs as well. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these indicators, these points of interest that we marked out, so that we can draw new ones for today and catch the next moves. So what am I marking out on H1? Again, point of interest 1.36709, and point of interest 2, which is 1.37694. So if the sell of USD CAD is going to continue, I want to see price retrace into this level, and then we're going to continue looking for sells, right? It's pretty systematic. It's very repetitive. Same thing we did on other asset classes we're doing here. It's 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 every time. Okay, so marking out yesterday's high right here, yesterday's low. Day before yesterday's high. This is the low that I marked out first. And day before yesterday's high, I'm going to have to zoom in. Okay. All right, so these are the levels we're watching out for. Price, come, find resistance, hit resistance, give us confirmation. We'll be looking for continuation of the sell of this particular asset class. So a quick look at Forex Factory. Do we have any news release that would shake things up a bit? Okay, so Forex Factory, today is the 1st of July. And it's Tuesday. We have a couple. On Canadian dollar, it's bank holiday. So if USD CAD is going to move, it's going to be more of a dollar move than a Canadian move. Then we have another one coming out by 2:30 p.m. first. Fed share payroll speaks, and then by 3 p.m. JOLTS job openings and ISM manufacturing PMI. Keep an eye out on these as well. So you're not taking off guard. If you prefer to not trade during news release, you can just close any trade you're in before these news releases come out. We have others on GBP and JPY, but our focus for the sake of this session I'm covering is on the dollar, Aussie, NZD, and CAD as well. But since these are what we're looking at, we want to pay attention to these news releases. You can go on Forex Live Performance to also see the breakdowns of what these mean if you want. So it's a systematic checklist, just like we do at the VFT Academy. You want to look at price action, indicator usage. You want to look at Forex Factory for news releases, and Forex Live for the translation of these different news releases. You could also look at Twitter. It gives you highlights as well on things, discussions that are happening. Okay, and that's pretty much it for the asset classes that I'm looking out for. When it comes to the economic theme right now, we do not have a clear one, but we can quickly look at that. So that's Forex performance. Right now, gold looks like the safest haven to go into because of the political instabilities that I highlighted earlier. So investors seem to be moving more into gold. You should also pay attention to that. Wait for this to load up a bit today. Today is the 1st of July, already stated that, but now we're just waiting for the economic theme to finish loading up. And the safest haven, yen seems to be the safe haven that investors are moving into. You can see Aussie, CAD, and the dollar are also weak, so there is no clear economic theme as at right now. So you could wait for 2:30 p.m. to see how the news release come out, play out, but that doesn't mean you can't catch anything before then. Just trade with proper risk management. Okay, if you have any questions, this is the perfect time to ask before we move into the next session. If not, and this was helpful, just leave an emoji and we'll be going into the next session. Was this helpful to you? Do you know what you're looking out for? For those of us who are new and everything we're saying sounds quite confusing, it is fine. Just send us a message on WhatsApp. Send us a message, or on Telegram, you could just message the admin number so we could guide you through, and you could just join the next cohort of classes that I'll be having at the academy. Okay, without taking too much more of our time, thank you, Grace. Let's move into the next half. Do not go anywhere. We'll be back in less than 1 minute to conclude this. As we always say, cheers and God bless.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the second part of the market color this morning. We'll be looking at the US markets in the US 30, NAS100, and also S&P500 quickly before we round up this session. All right, it has been an interesting ride since last week when we mentioned that we are clearly bullish, right? We stated emphatically last week that we were bullish on the markets across board with specific area of interest marked out on our chart. However, price will always want to do its thing, which happened. But then for those that were monitoring the markets closely, I strongly believe that you'll have gotten a zone to enter the market from, right? Because eventually we saw that zone happen, especially on US 30 and S&P 500. All right. So let's mark this. Sorry. Let's start with US 30 this morning before we go to the rest. All right. So on US 30, it has been an interesting ride. We mentioned very clearly on Thursday that we're looking for what? We're looking forward for buys to the upside. However, we mentioned on Thursday that price wasn't in our level or the level we wanted to come to before we start seeing that buy. In minutes, let's start with NAS100 so that we can probably explain everything very well. Okay, so price was still very far from where we wanted it to come on Thursday, right? Eventually, we saw that retracement, but it wasn't enough, right? It wasn't enough on Thursday. However, that doesn't stop us from, maximizing opportunity. So we had this area marked out on Thursday morning. We had this area marked out, and then we wanted price to, come to this zone. We wanted to start buying from this zone. However, we had the reaction on this other block here, tiny other block, and then push to the upside, right? And then we saw that rally breaking its all-time high that we had before. That's broken it before, but then you're seeing that push to the upside, that strong rally which we've been anticipating. We don't daily. No, this is not the rally. Okay, this is it. On daily time frame, remember very strongly we said that market is going to clear off this, high to the upside, and then we're looking for strong bullish candle, right? That is suggestive that the market is bullish, right? And then we can now start looking for opportunities across other asset classes. And this happened already. That was even on Tuesday before coming to Thursday last week. We had this happen, rally to the upside, and I said that provided we see a strong bullish candle closing on the daily time frame, we are bound to see that rally continue to the upside for the remaining of the week, right? So on Thursday, on Friday, we had those beautiful rally to the upside, and even yesterday, which was Monday, price still did what? Price still rally, right? You're seeing a retracement now, which is quite it's not surprising, just that on US 100, there's no reference to what we should expect. Where will price retrace to? We can't see vertically, except if we want to use Fibonacci, right? We just say, okay, probably 50%. We price want to come down to 50% retracement, or we see that push from 38.2 to the upside. It's still a very valid point. Coming to the lower time frame, on the 4-hour time frame, on the 4 hours, look at what we had. Price broke through this zone strongly and then retested it, right? Retested it. And one of the major things that I've observed, or major confluence when it comes to US 30, NAS, and the rest, equity asset class, US equity, is that it obeys fair value gap and other blocks, right? Fair value gaps and other blocks. So in moments where price is not, coming down to our area of interest or retracing to those zone we've marked out, best and the closest point of entry would be other blocks around those zones, right? The closest other block to where price is currently is, that would be like the best, zone for you to take trades from, right? Because usually when US 30 starts to move and there's no really any solid fundamental that is countering the bullishness, you will see it just retrace a bit. Any strategy can work when the market is bullish. That's just the end point of all of this that I'm saying. Any strategy can work when the market is really bullish. Support and resistance, retracement. But the best one that I've seen so far so good is the other block and the fair value gap, right? So we had the market retrace a bit and then few days tapped into this kind of not properly. It didn't use the week. It didn't use the body other block. It used more of the week, right? Tested the week and then started pushing to the upside, which is not surprising for us. We stated very clearly that we'll be using US100 to monitor the market for a buy, and then putting our chart side by side to check for US 30 so that we can leverage on that US 30, right? So even the same thing on US 100, price sweep here, break to the upside, but we didn't get to retrace. It retraced starting into this other block, but then we didn't get to actually retrace below this level, which we're expecting that we start buying from, right? That being said, price rallied to the upside, and then what happened again? It came back, tapped into this zone for a retracement, right? Almost like a 61.8 golden ratio retracement. And then we are seeing that push again to the upside, right? If everything remains really intact, we should see that rally continue again, right? Except something really stops it, which I don't think, right? So we have this inefficiency this morning around this zone, but then this other block is also sitting pretty well. I'll be watching out for this other block to see how price is going to react from this zone, right? This, except if for any reason I see that price breaks above this zone before 230, or price is testing this zone strongly before 230, then I can position for a buy around here. I'll look for one confluence, probably other block, fair value gap, break or retest, and then join the move to the upside, right? Because this is a very huge move. We've been waiting for this for quite some week now, right? So moving to the next one, which is our S&P 500, right? S&P 500 also had almost the same analysis. One thing I mentioned very clearly last week was this. As at when price was in those levels that we marked out, right? US S&P 500 was still somewhere around here, if I'm not wrong, somewhere around here. And then it was retracing on Thursday. Let me look for Thursday. Yes, this was Thursday. This particular candlestick hasn't gotten to this zone, just a little above this zone. And I mentioned very clearly that one of the best ways to trade this market is having them side by side, US 30, US 100, and S&P 500. If one has broken its all-time high, best believe the rest are going to follow suit, right? And that was what happened exactly, right? So as at last week, Thursday, S&P 500 hasn't broken its own, high, right? It was just testing, approaching those levels, and then we're patiently waiting for both S&P 500 and US 30 for them to catch up, right? I'm going to show us US 30 very soon, and then we'll see how this ties up together so that you can also apply that to your trading, right? When it comes to commodity equities trading, it is very, very, very valid. There are other ones that you can have yourself 200 and the rest, but then just for the sake of keeping this very simple, we'll just stick with this three, right? So the first one we have here is that price on Thursday eventually broke the high. On Friday, we saw that continuation to the upside, right? By the time we come to the 1 hour time frame, after breaking the high to the upside, we had that retest. Quite painful that price didn't stop retesting here. So if you were going to buy exactly from the break that support resistance storm support, you might have been taken out, right? Because price didn't just land exactly on this zone. There's another block there which I was hoping that the market is going to retest from. We have two other blocks, right? Although yeah, this has been tested before, but it could as well have been tested again, right? But then the markets just pierce through all of this confluence here, and then we saw that rally to the upside. So those that were watching S&P 500 actively in terms of taking trades from those markets will have been taken out, right? Our Thursday analysis didn't even play out on S&P 500 because price was very far. Price didn't come back to retest. Our Thursday analysis, this was the only small retracement we had. So price didn't get to come back to our area of interest. That's one should I say interesting? Yeah, it's an interesting fact about the market. When the market is unstable, you can predict with some level of accuracy where price is going to, retrace from, probably a sweep of liquidity, order block. But then once it is bullish and everything is bullish, fundamental, technical, it's so hard. You have to keep chasing the market and using the closest area of interest, right, or closest confluence to enter trade with this market, because there was no place again to enter this market. The moment it didn't come down to this zone, there was literally no spot for re-entry, right? And price kept pushing to the upside, which is just one of the things when it comes to S&P 500. It can be like that sometimes, and also the rest of the asset class, right? So finally, let's look at US 30. Right. One beautiful thing about US 30 that we mentioned was this on the daily time frame. As of last week, US 30 was still last week, Thursday. Okay, we're here. We're still somewhere around here. Last week, Thursday. In fact, in the morning, we're still very, very much around this zone, right? And then price was still around here. We've not seen that bullish move. Before the end of Thursday, we saw price rally to the upside, right? So tying everything together, US 100, which has broken its own all-time high, right? Previous all-time high, and created a new high, was already one of our trade play, right? And we said that because that has happened, and also the same thing is about to happen on S&P 500, we would most likely 80-90% see a rally across board on US 30, right? It's like when GU and EU are moving, if everything are the same and nothing is really strong on individual currency, economy, probably it's just based on weakness of the dollar. If EU start moving, be rest assured, GU would also move, right? That's like correlation. The same thing also happens here, right? When it comes to technical analysis, when it comes to technical, forget about fundamental now, because fundamental can change the dynamics of how this thing works. For pure technical, you can literally see, when you literally see US 100 rallying, S&P 500 also rallying, go to US 30, and then it also would rally, right? So we had this last week, and then price rally to the upside, and it gave a re-entry. But then for the rally of US 30, we have this much space to go. Remember, about 2 weeks ago, we calculated it, and we got about 2,000 pips from where price was, right? And we saw that if we project into that, and then we're able to catch only 500 or even 1,000, that would be a lot, right? So that's our current situation in this market now. Look at something very interesting. US 100 has cleared its own all-time high. S&P 500 too has done what? Has done the same. The only guy left to catch up is what? US 30, meaning we still have enough space for buys in this market, right? We still have enough space for buys in this market on US 30, right? So because we expect it also to go and do what? To go and clear its own previous all-time high. And from the trade that was called last week, we didn't have any setups peculiar on US 30 because price didn't give us any area to retrace on. But by Friday, we saw something interesting, right? Unlike S&P 500 that violated, the order block, this other block was tested, respected, and then look at the beautiful rally to the upside, right? This was almost 1:4, 1:5, right? By the time you measure it clearly and properly, get 1:4, 1:5, and it's one of those, very, very clean trade with no stress, no drama at all. Price tapped into the other block and then just started riding. In 3 hours, we're out of the market with no, drama. So what can happen this morning? What can happen today? I'll be watching how price is going to react also from this zone, right? Watching this other block. And then if I get to see if this price action gets to hold before 2:30 that New York market is going to open, then I should expect that this rally is going to continue, that the markets will keep rallying to the upside because, price is going to hold all of this, hold this zone. Let me mark what I'm trying to say. This entire zone here looks very valid. If for any reason before 2 or 2:30, we see that doesn't get violated, then we expect that this rally is going to continue to the upside, right? That being said, all of this is predicated on the fact that fundamentals still remains very the same, right? We don't see Trump tweeting something really, really, funny that can send the markets to the downside again, right? For the past 1 week, it has been quite peaceful in terms of fundamentals, and then trade war, even tariff. Recently, Canada also dropped their, the proposed tariff against digital service in the US. They dropped it, and then that also sent the stock market in the US rallying, which is beautiful to see, right? So I believe as the weeks unfold, we'll be seeing risks on, meaning stock should also still rally to the upside more and more, right? That being said, this is a good place to ask a question. If you have any questions so far this morning, you can ask a question. You can ask your question. Ayuba, Ezekiel, GW, James, Joseph, Colade, Mike, Anide, and then Saint Paul. Do we have any question this morning? So we look at it together before we wrap up this session for the morning, and then we'll meet again by 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Do we have any question? Do you have any question? All right. I see there are no questions. So in the absence of no question, we'll be meeting again by 2 p.m. this afternoon, and we'll be looking at the recap of all of this that we've said, our price has reacted to the levels that we've drawn out, and the expected areas we are expecting, right, price to react from, how price reacted from those zone, what is happening, what is going to happen next, if there's anything significant that's going to make us shift our bias. We'll look at that in the afternoon. All right. Until then, I wish you a profitable trading. Ensure you use proper risk management to your trade. If you don't have any of your setup for the morning, ensure you don't have to trade, right? Trading doesn't have to be every day. You can look at the market every day, or you don't necessarily have to pull the trigger every day, right? So that you conserve your, capital. All right. That being said, I wish you all a profitable trading. Cheers and God bless. We see you by 2 p.m. in the afternoon.